Advisory Commission meeting, regular meeting, November 8th, 2023. So I will call this meeting to order. And the first on the agenda, other than that, is citizen comments. Do we have any citizen comments? No, we do not. Do we have any citizens watching? Okay, the active agenda, number 3, we have, first on that, we have speed limits and traffic engineering. And Luke, I believe you're on the spotlight here.
Come sit down if that's okay.
That's perfect, and you can stay up here with us. No reason for you not.
Okay.
Luke, did you need this up?
I wasn't planning to, as long as everybody's got their packets and has the memo available. Okay. If anyone's missing that, we could make a copy or get it on the screen. But
I've got mine in here so that they could use this.
okay. So the memo really is pretty encompassing as far as how we determine speed limits. Not sure if everyone got a chance to review it, so I'll just cover it real briefly. As far as speed limits goes, engineers rely on kind of a combination of resources, but the primary one is the MUTCD, the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So that sets good guidelines and policies to follow when setting speed limits. In Lewiston, in Idaho, the state sets all of their speed limits. The cities have the ability to modify highway speed limits through town, and then the city sets all speed limits for their local roads. So in Lewiston, we've got quite a number of those. I think I said we've got 377 speed limit signs. I was on Cartograph this morning, and there was 386 signs, so we've added some since then. And then I think that's kind of everything I want to cover at a very high level, and I'd open it up to questions from there.
Okay, and I did forget, before I introduced you, to introduce Brandon.
Brandon, yes.
And so he is here from the police department today, so we appreciate you being here. Yeah, any questions of Luke or Brandon?
So I have one real quick, like, once the speed limits are initially set, how often are they reviewed with Brighton Canyon or other places where they may or may not be followed as much as other places?
Yeah. So we, there's a couple of different triggers. One of the primary one is citizen complaint. If citizens are noticing that there's like, hey, I'm trying to drive along this road and everybody's going too fast, then that could trigger what is called a speed study. So we put up traffic measuring devices that count how many cars are going through, how fast they're going, and then I think I mentioned that in here. I didn't. So we seek to set the speed where the 85th percentile of drivers wants to drive. So a street feels like it should be traveled so fast to most drivers. And so we seek to set that limit. And then there's other considerations that come into play based on, are there children present? Is this a residential neighborhood? Things like that. So you'll drop from there, but on a road like Brighton, it's, what is a safe design speed for it? That's what it was designed to. And then that gets set. We've had examples where someone perceived that recent example, Main Street is generally perceived to be that people travel too fast, and admittedly, people travel too fast. But when we did a speed study, we found that the 85th percentile, so 85% of the drivers are traveling at or below 20 miles per hour. There's just that 15% that give the perception that it's not functioning the way it's supposed to. One other thing I'd highlight, it's not in response to the question, but all of the city of Lewiston streets coming in and out of town have a posting that says that the local speed limit is 25 unless otherwise posted. So the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit is posted everywhere in town, regardless of whether there's a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit sign on that street. Because it's posted as you enter the city, so that gives the police department the ability to enforce that 25-mile-an-hour speed limit sign on any street in town unless it's otherwise marked.
So outside of citizens' complaint, can like a body like us or the city council trigger a speed study?
Of course, yeah.
And are there ever just periodic or not really?
Sorry.
I'm thinking specifically of like Snake River Avenue. During the summer, there's the farmer's market.
Yeah.
And then I know the future planning of that is to change, gradually make it from industrial to more commercial or, more of a walkable space, that kind of thing. So stinker between the roundabout and 21st to make it from 35 to 25. That would have to come from the city council.
Yeah, city council ultimately determines whether or not the speed limits change. The ordinance that governs it specifically lists, did we include that in our packet? Specifically lists a number of roads. Yeah, so section 35-32 lists out any variation from 25 miles per hour that is allowed in town. So if council decided to, for instance, change that section of Snake River Avenue, then they could, through ordinance, change the code and remove that from the 35 mile per hour portions that are outlined in code. So council holds the ultimate decision factor. Engineering would, our process would be to do a speed study and see on there, and then evaluate that based on if we thought we could get compliance. Chances are you would not get compliance just by putting up a 25 mile per hour speed limit sign. You could have PD out there and they would work very hard pulling people over trying to get compliance, and you would gain it for a while. But because the street is open and straight and you can see for a long ways, people are gonna travel faster than 25 because it feels like you should. And so if you were going to change that, you would have to add in what comes in with our next conversation down the agenda, some kind of traffic calming so that the street feels more constricted so you don't want to go as fast. And then that would bring the speeds down. But as it is now, Snake River Avenue, you wouldn't be able to get compliance at 25 currently.
You can't even on the bridge.
No. Yeah, and
I have to
10-foot lanes,
watch
right?
my speedometer all the time. I can't follow the traffic or I'm in violation.
Yeah, Lewiston is a challenge because of the block lengths that we have, particularly in the orchards, but Snake River Road is another one. But you have straight roads that have no intersections that are, not all of them are wide, but a lot of them are wide. And you just feel, Snake River is a perfect example. Like you can just set the course and pretty soon you're 35, 40 miles an hour.
But as we integrate more pedestrians facilities into that, we would probably put pedestrian bulbs and.
Well, that's an
things
example of Main Street's same thing,
Yes.
straight, but it's got the curb bulbs, it's got pedestrian crossings, it's got parking on both sides, it's got trees,
And they
you've got
space-
commercial, you feel, you were going 35 on Main Street, you'd feel it.
Yes, you would. What is the Elks edition?
I think that's 25. 25, everything's up there at 25, right?
Is
Country Club's 35.
Country Club's 35, but up
Oh,
past
okay,
Country
but
Club.
up inside, cause my car tells me it's 35 and I'm going, this should not be a 35. It shouldn't be, but it's residential, so I figured it had to be 25.
Did I answer your question, sir?
Yes, thank you.
So not sure if right forum for this, so about 7-8 months ago, I came into engineering to get 2 streets signed for speed limits, and it was, I don't know if it kind of just fell on deaf ears, but we have 2 issues, 2 streets that to me and for us in the police department need to be signed.
Okay.
And that's 11th Avenue. So from Snake River Avenue to 18th Avenue, so we're looking at, 19 blocks, there's no street signs for 11th Avenue. And 11th Avenue is I wouldn't say it's a major thoroughfare, but definitely a secondary. I just drove it today just to verify. We have, if you look at it from Snake River Avenue to 30th Street, we have 3 speed limit signs that are all compacted in a 3-block radius. It's between 18th Avenue and 18th Street and 20th Street. And the reason why we have 2 25-mile-per-hour signs there is because that's a school zone, so that you have to put a sign to indicate the end of that school zone. But 11th Avenue is a source of complaints, and people are doing 35, 35, some a little more than that. But that's a huge straight street, and there's no signage. Near the college now, we have that private school there, the old high school. There's no signage anywhere indicating 11th Avenue is a 25-mile-per-hour zone. And I know we have those signs that say, coming into town that's 25 unless otherwise posted. I think we've had an issue in our court here. I haven't personally, but my last agency, that I had to prove that that person drove past that sign that day to be able to enforce that, or the judge would throw it out. Because they said, the street's not posted, therefore I have to prove they drove past that sign that says, coming into town, that's 25 miles per hour unless otherwise posted. If I couldn't prove that, he threw the case out. So we were losing our citation. So it makes it very difficult for us to enforce when it's not a posted street. And I'm not saying that's happening here, just I knew that from a previous agency. And the last other spot is it's 19th Avenue between 21st Street and 17th Street in front of Winco, the mall. I came in and checked, it is supposed to be 25, but you're coming off 2 35-mile-per-hour zones, turning onto 19th Avenue, and expect people to know that, okay, I'm turning off at 35, I should know this is 25, and it's not posted. So I don't stop people for those unless they're excessive, 45, 50 miles an hour, then I will stop and write for those. But if they're doing 35, I let them go. Because I cannot justify stopping them when they're coming off 2 35-mile-per-hour streets onto a large 4-lane highway. And it should be 25, but it's not posted.
Yes, so I kind of have a couple questions with regards to this and then a couple follow-ups. So after reading all of this and understanding some of your concerns and why you wanted this brought up and the signs, and again, why the sergeant is also bringing this up, is I had requested prior to this meeting a map of where all the signs, where all the speed limit signs were throughout the city, just so I could kind of see. We got, this one has the speed limit and so it's a little bit confusing. I was hoping just to have the stop signs removed. So we could see kind of where the speed limit signs were, so that you could kind of gauge based on the colors, where the 35 zones were, where the 25 zones were, and kind of see where the speed limit signs were, because I drove around again before this meeting just to kind of get that feel. And yes, there are times there's like no signs anywhere, and yes, you're supposed to know, like it says that everything's supposed to be 25, but there are times, you're kind of like, well, is this a 25 or is this a 35? And then all of a sudden you have somebody on your rear end and you start speeding up, and you don't mean to, but you're like, well, speed limit, you know, so maybe I'm wrong and I should be speeding up and going faster, So, so I do kind of wanna see, where those signs are, how many we do have out there. I understand some of the, budget concerns and things of that nature as well about the inclusion of signs, and so I'd also requested in my email prior to this is because, yes, there are requirements and kind of some standards to replace the signs every so many years, like it says here. A new sign is about $300, and I know there's costs and everything. So they're talking about 386 just speed limit signs, and I know there's a whole bunch. So I was asking if there was some sort of a schedule of how many signs annually to meet this requirement, or what are we looking at for the next 5 to 10 years? I know that they're losing that road bridge tax, but we should be getting stormwater dollars. So if there was sort of a request, whether from the police or from this commission, to go to the council saying, maybe we should add some more signs, or maybe, have a study to, I'm hoping that this committee can make those recommendations, to go towards council. But before we kind of do that, trying to understand the costs and how that works. And so I don't even, I guess there isn't a schedule or a plan, or somebody was gonna check to see if there was a schedule, so we know if we have, I'm just throwing out numbers, we have 20 signs, 20 speed limit signs we have to replace because they're not meeting the new standards for reflection, all that other stuff. We have, 15 X signs and, all these other bits, but we have to add, based on the request from council, we have 30 new signs we need to add, so our budget requires X. I'm trying to kind of see that part of it, because I'm hoping as we kind of go through, some of these things can be addressed and we can bring those forward, if that makes sense. So it's kind of twofold, is kind of getting an understanding of where the signs are, and then how do we go about helping with the budget? And I'm not even into the school zones yet, I'm just trying to kind of figure out this part of it to go forward. And I know that was kind of long, but I've been trying to grapple with this myself, like I said, reading, driving, reviewing all the standards and everything. I don't know if that makes sense, my question, and where we go.
Was there a question?
There was a question. There's three, the schedule, the mapping, kind of getting a little bit better. How do we go about, like Kevin was saying, how do we kind of make some recommendations? How do the officer make recommendations? How does this kind of go forward so that we are kind of addressing, because like I said, I wasn't aware kind of as much until I really started driving it this last week after reading this, and I was like, yeah, we really kind of do need to talk about this. It was, yeah, good thing.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
So, schedule, I talked with the traffic supervisor
Okay.
this morning after I emailed you. He indicated that since about 15 years ago, they started replacing all of the engineering grade signs with HIP, what does it stand for?
High visibility, it's a high reflective visibility, something or another.
Yeah, it's a retroreflectivity sign. I can't remember what HIP stands for. But all of our signs, he's like, there's probably one or two somewhere that he doesn't know about that just didn't get changed out. But the goal has been to transition to the higher grade retroreflective signs. So in his mind, that's been done, and in cartograph, that seems to bear out. And the schedule is now, this is basically year 15 of that effort. So any sign that was installed 15 years ago will be evaluated this year for retroreflectivity and whether or not it can remain in service. The other thing that they do on a regular basis is travel all of the streets in town at night and look at the signs to see, are they functioning, right? Does one have paint splatter across it that you can't see during the day? Is one bent or scratched up to the point that you can't read it? And so any signs that are marred, either get washed or replaced, depending. So that's kind of this.
How long does that take?
How long does it take them to evaluate that? I did not ask that question.
Seems like a while.
We have 400 and some odd lane miles of road, so I would imagine it would take.
And there's one
them a
person that
while.
does that? We have 3 traffic staff. 3 traffic.
Traffic stuff. So they put a task in for themselves in Cartograph and then go through and.
Kind of doing street lights.
I would think that's probably a different, I'm not sure
Okay.
how exactly they work that.
So this started out, just to give background, for one, citizens have reached out to me about certain areas, feeling like they're kind of not realizing when the speed limit's changed and have gotten pulled over, and felt frustrated by it. And so I asked Chief Kuzic his opinion on certain roads and what he felt, and he said, well, for one thing, there's not a lot of signs. So that's why this whole signs thing started, because I was like, well, you're right, there isn't a lot of signs. And then one of the big roads that I've gotten citizens get frustrated by is by the Schweitzer, where it's like, I think it's like 35 and it goes into 25 to, once you get towards Home Depot and everything.
Juniper is where it goes
Juniper,
to,
yeah, and then it hits, and now it hits to 25, so they feel like that they don't have a lot of time before it hits like 35, 25, if that makes sense. But there was obviously other citizens that have complained about other streets where people are speeding beyond 25 when it is in fact, or 35 when it is in fact at 25. And I don't know if your car, how they determine that, like, is it some kind of digital system where your car knows what the speed limit is? Are those even accurate? Because some newer cars will tell them what the speed limit is.
It's just like the GPS.
Just
It's-
GPS.
Sometimes it sends you to a lake and sometimes it
Right,
sends you to
so
the
it's
right
not always
location. It's,
accurate.
yeah, it's
Okay.
whatever data's been input, so.
Yeah.
I've seen
Okay.
a lot of them that are wrong, but
Who updates those? Do we at the city
whoever
level?
Google or whoever the carrier.
Oh, really?
yeah,
Okay.
We don't,
We don't deal with that. Okay, well, that doesn't help probably people then. So that's why this came about. It was citizens and Chief Kuzic saying, yeah, no, this would be something good to look into, because there are people and especially our police that are trying to do traffic calming and keep people within the speed limits and not being able to enforce that. I could see how the courts would be like, that doesn't make sense. You had no way to see that. So I think we should definitely get ahead of that.
I'll tell you, that area, Juniper and Nez Perce Drive, that's all well signed. The only spot that's 35 is when you're coming off of Gun Club, that new extension they built.
Yes, I think that was the
From
part.
Gun
and then
Club
from
until
in.
you hit Juniper, it's 35, but it's well signed. As soon as you hit Juniper, there's a big old 25-mile-per-hour sign, so I run that quite a bit too, and it's pretty well. So, just
Yeah.
for that area.
Just for that
And so there's no issues with that, but we do have certain places that it's just, the signs are so sporadic, or like 11th Avenue where you have no signage, and it's a major thoroughfare for people, or at least a secondary thoroughfare. And we have, the college, we have Jennifer, we have the new charter school right there, the old high school.
Right.
So it's kind of concerning when there is no signs, and people, like, it's a straight stretch, especially all the way from 8th Street to 17th Street, there's no stop signs, no stop lights. It's easy to get 35 plus going down.
I see it all the time, I live right there.
Yeah.
So I think maybe what she was also asking, and correct me if I'm wrong, is I think part of hers was not so much the replacement of signs, but the addition of signs. As far as like on the 11th Avenue and putting them in, so there's more of them. I mean, I know we have about almost 400, and is there a budget for that, and is there a schedule for periodic? Because, I mean, there's gotta be, because there's new subdivisions being built every day.
Yeah, so subdivisions are a different animal because the developer has to put all those up.
Okay.
So the current policy within Public Works for speed limit signs is if there is a request for a sign, then it is evaluated through engineering, and then the city engineer has to sign off on it to be installed. So a traffic order would be placed, and then once the traffic order is reviewed, it can be approved or denied. The current 25-mile-per-hour policy has been that because we have a number of, all of the signs coming into town posted, that we primarily just use speed limit signs for transitions. So those areas where we're transitioning from one speed limit to another, then we 5 mile per hour. To the sergeant's point about 11th Avenue, that street is highly traveled and more dense. And so it could make sense there to put in a filler here and there.
I was just gonna ask, is there a way to evaluate based on your response to Commissioner Kelly, is there a way to maybe reassess and maybe with the, and I understand you have to go by MTCUS standards, but is there a way maybe to then see, because last time we learned a little bit more about the arterials and all that bit, so you're saying that one's a little bit more traveled and whatnot. So is there a way maybe to maybe come up with a new standard maybe, or think about a new standard? So something like 11 or some of these other areas, even, probably Snake River is a good example, because I think I've only seen like a couple signs, I have to drive that now again. There should be, after so much distance, there should be, I'm feeling like there should be more filler signs. Just because if you're not kind of paying attention or whatnot, you're gonna, I don't know, I feel like every so often there should be more filler signs when I'm driving now that I'm more aware.
I don't think policy-wise, I may kick it to Dustin, as far as what our options are budget-wise and things like that. As city engineer, my role, I would be open to signing some of our collectors more effectively. The main consideration there is you start going down we're gonna put speed limit signs up, and that's why I included the budget information that I did. Because it does add up fairly quickly. And so just trying to keep that out there as a consideration of, where the balance between holding people accountable for the signage that is in place, as well as, helping them out.
And that's why I was trying to see what the replacement schedule was, how that was working and stuff like that. So, because yes, you have to take that all into consideration, I understand, but we also have to be kind of cognizant on the safety side and also help, the police department so that they can be able to cite people for safety and not, kind of waste their time and have a court throw it out or something like that.
I'll say some components to that. One is, I don't think we recently received a request, and it wasn't necessarily speed limit signs, but we received a request to audit the signs on Main Street. What was that? Were you part of that? I mean, it was a couple months ago, and we removed how many? Something like 80 signs from the downtown because there was
Not speed limit signs.
not speed limit signs, but do not block I can't remember all of the obscure, and so you get to that certain point where people get, whatever you wanna call it.
Glazed over.
Yeah, they just,
Well,
the blind of everything of,
there was a lot of signs down there.
yeah, there was a lot of sign, and so
It was a little much.
whether it's the commercial corridor or your residential street, typically you get people to say, less is more. Don't give me all these, I don't want speed limit signs and no parking signs and all the different signs in front of my house or in front of my business or everything else, where we're talking about arterials and collectors, and you have wider block lengths, higher travel speeds, maybe less people driving in that, and on a daily basis. And so those are the streets that I think we could probably focus on.
But that's what I was just thinking, 19 blocks, that is a long distance.
Yeah, I think that what we would rely on is travel speeds, accident data, and then just responses from PD like we just did of, that one is a bad example, so get a traffic order in and we evaluate it. But a lot of times, not to be blunt, but if there's not a problem, a sign's not gonna fix a problem that doesn't exist. And so if we have travel speeds on a road that doesn't have if the travel speeds are 25, the 85th percentile on an arterial or a collector street somewhere out there, and I'm not gonna use this, powers or whatever, the travel speeds are okay, the accident is okay, but there's probably not enough signs on it, probably not a priority to go out and sign it. I'm fairly comfortable the way we do it now with, just getting feedback from the public, we have a traffic department, we have a street department, we have a PD department, we have a fire department, so we have a lot of eyes and ears out on the streets that give us feedback on what's going on, and if it's, Main Street's one that's gotten a lot of attention, where we do a speed study. What's the 85th percentile, and where are those outliers, and what times are those outliers driving, and, how close are they to schools and all those other things, so, there's that component. The other thing I did want to bring up, signs and poles and all of the hardware that go with that are not budgeted in the capital budget, so this is all O&M. We have been working through, trying to replace, if you look, a lot of the signs, I'm not even sure percentage-wise how much is still out there. Trying to replace the wooden posts with Telspar, so you get the breakaway, and they weather obviously better than wood. That was part of the budget that wasn't necessarily increased. We asked for an increase, we didn't get it, so that's kind of just the general how municipal government works. We asked for more increase in a budget on that one. That was one that was not approved, so we move forward with the existing budget with the funding we have. And when the funding is empty, we stop replacing the Telspar. And that's with the staff, we have three traffic folks, and that's what they do when they're available. And for whatever reason, we had a lot of traffic, streetlights that got knocked down this year, so we spent a lot of time just fixing up streetlights that got knocked down.
With the accident data and review, do you get that in real time, or that was kind of one of my initial questions, I guess, with that reevaluation, what's the frequency on that, or that's time for.
Yeah, LTAC, accident data is not necessarily real time, but it can be, it's fairly current.
Like a summary at the end of the year where all the accidents were in the city?
It goes to a central database, and so we can query that database, whatever street, whatever area we're looking for. We can get that, and then we can break it down into, just regular whatever's reported through PD is an accident that shows up, and then it's whether it's been just property damage, a serious accident, or fatality. So we have all that, and we can track that, not necessarily real time. The speed studies, we have also a database of all of the speed studies. So no matter when we did it, it's all in our database. And so we can go back and look and say, we did one 5 years ago. The 85th percentile on a 25-mile-an-hour road was 26.5. It's now 28.9. So it's creeping in the wrong direction. We contact PD. We say, can we get a little bit more enforcement? They come back and say, yeah, we got maybe a sign here, maybe a tweak there. And that's kind of how it's always been done.
Okay, so say there's 5 accidents in a random intersection though, but you wouldn't see that information though, or be prompted to it unless somebody complains, or do you go looking proactively for that?
That's a good question. That's kind of a chicken and the egg kind of thing, because a case in point is some of our grants that we go after are specifically tied to accident data. And so we pull up the map and we'll turn on the heat map and it'll show you, specifically, the ones, it's just the truth. If there's a fatality on one of our local streets, considering most of our streets are 25 or 35, so if you have a fatality, something went significantly wrong. And if you have a road like Brighton, it's not 35 or 25, it's 50, and I don't even know what the 85th percentile is, but it can be high. And I know of at least 2 fatalities on that street, so that one pops. And so there's been a couple other ones where we've had fatalities on Thane, we've had fatalities kind of at the bottom of 21st Street. And what was involved? Was it impaired driver? Was there a pedestrian involved? What were the conditions? And so we go through all of that. And so we start at the top. We look at the fatalities, then we look at, was there significant injuries, multiple injuries, and a lot of it, pedestrians and vehicles, that interface is a lot of times, were they jaywalking, were they impaired, what's going on, so that we look at that, and again, that's generally on an annual basis, and those data points stay in for a long, we'll use that for 5-10 years, projecting forward to see, I'm trying to think of, like the intersection at 21st and 19th, the ones that we just improved, that was money that was safety funds. And so we used the data from 21st and 19th to improve that intersection. And then we'll reevaluate it and see if it made any difference, and then move forward for other safety grants.
So when you mentioned O&M, that's operations and maintenance, correct?
Yep.
Just to clear that up.
Yep.
And you might have said something that I missed, as far as maybe an informal or even a formal way for officers on the street to, because that's obviously a concern, for them to say, hey, I think this. Is there a path there already, or do we need a formal or informal one for that kind of thing? Because it shouldn't take a commission like this to.
No, we could probably formalize it more. I mean, a case in point, the school resource officers are I shouldn't say constantly, but they're giving us feedback a lot on mostly school crossings, school zones, where growth is, they're giving me all kinds of, I get emails, the most emails I get are from the school resource officers.
Okay.
Second, probably be the chief. The chief and I communicate back and forth on, it's more high level of accident responses in specific areas. This accident happened, or we're getting a lot of hot heat on this one, or it'll come from me to them of, hey, are you aware of that? And so that's where I get most of mine, but we communicate quite a bit. So maybe it is better, or it would be, if we give a form, whether it's for internal and external, where give us a road, give us a concern.
We have citizen request forms that we get filled out fairly regularly, and it helps enter those, and then those are entered into cartograph, and then we determine what to do with them from there.
So this is the calming device request?
So that is the next conversation under item B of the active agenda.
Well, before, I think Commissioner Rader's been trying to ask a
sorry.
couple questions, so hopefully he
I
can
just-
ask, and then I have another one after.
Okay,
yell at me.
I hope mine will be quick. No, it's fine. Everybody, it was good discussion.
I wasn't trying to move on, I was just pointing out that that is not an example of what we're using currently, I don't think. I think that was just that's for discussion on the next item.
Yep. Nope, that's not it.
This?
Nope,
That's not what you were talking about?
nope, there's a different one.
Okay. That's not it?
Nope.
Okay.
All right, so it seems like, if I heard correctly, you guys would get complaints, and it sounds like maybe, I'm assuming some go to the police department and some go to council members, maybe, at least that's what I heard here. Do you guys feel good that those get relayed adequately? I mean, complaints, and then are those tracked, or is it just the submitted? Or if they call the police department, are they directed to submit a form to Public Works?
Yes.
The reason I'm asking is, so it sounds like the forms get put into cartograph, and so if you were to see an area that had 5 complaints on it in a short stretch, you would probably wonder what's going on there and put more focus on it.
I will say, I don't think all the police officers know that there's even a form. Cause I went to a police officer that pulled someone over on my street and said, hey, this is the area that's constantly getting speeders. What can I do? He's like, oh, you can call. And I called, and then nothing happened. And that was prior to me being on council, but that's another reason why, is I experienced not getting any kind of communication back about speed problems. And so that's not at the fault of the police officer, because I'm sure they don't know that or how to properly go through that. So I think that could get better, is so that they know and how they can direct citizens to put a complaint in about a certain particular street, and that we can follow up with them. And whether that even be that maybe they wanna get their neighborhood together, and they wanna pull funds together to try to put some kind of traffic calming thing, and how can they go about that? Cause I think sometimes we're getting where they feel like we're giving all these solutions, we're asking for something, and then it's like, well, it's not really that big of a deal, or we're not seeing it, but they're seeing it constantly, people constantly speeding on their streets. And those are like your little neighborhood streets that really honestly 25 is probably even too fast.
You guys are probably getting complaints, and separate from what we are getting, 'cause we do have an online submittal form that people can call in, submit a form saying, hey, I want extra patrol in this area due to people running the stop sign, speeding. And those will sometimes come to me and we will actually generate a call for it.
Okay,
And then officers are kind of expected to, when we can, is to go out and say, okay, we got complaints in here, and then they'll go out and do some enforcement, then they'll go into that call and say, I spent an hour at this location, made one stop for 5 over the speed limit. Other than that, everybody was driving the speed limit. So to show kind of some tracking history with that, to show that we are actually doing something. But again, it's dependent on how many calls we have for service. We might not have an officer, may not ever be able to hit that street. We just don't have the time or the ability to do so.
so the form that you're talking about and the form he's talking about are two different forms, it sounds
Yeah,
like then.
so that is enforcement, that I'm on my street, there's too many people speeding.
Yeah,
I need somebody out there in a car to make sure they don't speed. The requests that come to our office saying, you've got it signed 25, it should be 20, or it's signed 35, or there are no signs, or, my stop sign's gone. We get those forms, those go into cartograph, and we get a work order, and then that goes into, some of them, or maybe it's a speed study, or, we get knockdown signs all the time. We put a work order, went out, replaced the sign. That's how, we close that out.
okay, I was misunderstanding that, so I was referring to not having someone, not asking for more patrol, but really, what's a resource I can then get a hold of Public Works so that they can find permanent traffic and calming techniques, or put things in place. Because typically, I haven't heard any complaints that you guys don't try to respond to streets when needed, so, so you guys, your police officers are doing a good job. So that was two different forms that I was referring to. I didn't realize those are two different forms. So I don't know if there's a way for police officers to have that readily available for them, that they could say, well, you could also submit this form. I don't know if that's feasible, I'm just throwing it out there, but.
The forms are online.
Well, a lot of people don't know that though. Where do they get it? I mean, how do citizens know that that's online? So it's some kind of way.
Right,
that
I
we
was
can
just,
relay.
you asked the question of, is there a way for police officers to direct them?
Right,
And
yeah.
If they directed them to, fill out the form.
And Haley or Jill downstairs, phone calls, emails, in person, we'll enter them.
Sorry, we'll just complete the form on their behalf using the information that they've provided.
Okay,
Yeah.
if they call
Yeah.
personally, okay.
Or come in.
Or somebody bends my ear at the grocery store, I come and I put it in myself.
Put it in yourself, okay. Wasn't sure how that
When you go
works.
to Costco?
That is the worst.
Sergeant, did we, your initial comment that you had, asked for signage on 11th and some other streets, did we satisfy your question on that?
No, so I came in and Iris, I came in and I spoke with her, and I think it was during or after COVID, so there was a little bit of, but I really brought those two, and so she pulled out the computer and find out what are the actual speed limits, especially there on 19th Avenue. And she goes, well, it is showing in our computer system that it's supposed to be 25, and I'm like, well, I have a huge complaint because you have two 35s, like you said, the transition, when you're coming off one street to another, if the speed limit changes, we should have a sign there, and I go, 19th Avenue is not signed, so I brought up that in 11th Avenue. And I'm not putting this on her by any means. I says, the 11th Avenue and 19th Avenue has to be signed. They're major thoroughfares, we get lots of complaints, and we need to get those signed. And then I just didn't hear back, or,
You've dealt with that for quite a while. I think, is there something we can do here to,
And we'll go take care of it.
okay, great.
or even just do a speed study to go out there, especially on 11th Avenue, just to see what is the major speed. Because I drive that all the day and I can get 34, 35 through there all day long.
And the other question is, you've talked about schools on 11th Avenue. Should it have a school zone sign?
That's why I was just gonna ask, because I know we're running out of time.
Yes, and I
But the
wanna
problem
move
is,
it
we
along.
haven't even gotten to the whole school zone, so I didn't know if that was part of this discussion, or was it part of the traffic calming, or where were we at with the school? Because that's another whole huge issue right
Well,
now.
so was the fact of talking about if there's certain streets that we should be changing speed limits on, whether they're
Yes.
worth being 25 or 35.
So, I mean, do we table the school zone one for another time? Because, I do have a few questions about that, and
Were the school zones an issue? I haven't personally heard any, but not to say that
Well,
that's
I
not.
didn't know if there was one on 11th Avenue. And like you said, there's several schools in that area. A
There's-
lot of children traffic, foot traffic.
There's one school zone, and that is at 19th Avenue, and that's for the kids to go to Whitman. Other than that, there used to be a 20 miles per hour all day long when the high school was in session, or the old high school, right there near 13th Avenue, or I keep saying Avenue, 13th Street. There was a 20 mile, but once this high school was gone, they took those signs out.
Do we have
But-
those signs?
But Normal Hill
Put 'em back.
campus is still active, right now? Or what is that being used for?
Well, there's a
Pinecrest
boys
is
and girls
the-
club is there.
So it's a
And
mixture.
then there is that charter school.
And I will tell you, those signs do not work. The all day longs, 20 miles
Right.
per hour.
Oh, it wasn't effective.
That's why I came in several years ago and says, we need to get 17th Street, the flashing yellow lights quit. Doing the 20 miles an hour all day long type thing, and so they finally put in the flashing yellows for 17th Street in front of Jennifer.
What's the difference between the two signs? I guess I thought all day long just meant it was flashing, but I didn't realize, is there two,
There
it
was
just
no-
says all day long or?
There's one little sign that says it's 20 miles an hour from 7 AM to 4 PM. No
Oh,
flashing yellow
I
lights,
see.
and people don't drive by looking
Right.
at little, and trying to
Right.
read a little
Paying attention to the
sign
time.
that says what hours they can do, they have to do 20 miles per hour.
Okay.
Or there's signs that say when children are present.
Yeah, I
They
have
got
seen
rid of
those.
that though.
Yeah.
Thank goodness, because we used to have to prove that if a child was present for us to write a ticket, and that was a pain.
So if this is just kind of an informational one, then this presentation, then maybe an internal committee should, between the police department and public works. I mean, I know I've been on a couple over my lifetime here of, where internal public works and the police department get together like once a month or once every other month, and they talk about all those various issues. Very informative you'd have the city engineers, you'd have actual public works staff that are out there, and people that replace the signs or whatever, or their supervisors and people that know, and then you'd usually have a traffic officer and sometimes their sergeant. And they would hash out a lot of this stuff internally, so that their questions and stuff like that can get answered and dealt with, and they would just have like an internal agenda, so it's just something to throw out there, since it doesn't sound like, it sounds like all we're being told is kind of that there's a form, have people fill out the form or something like that, so, that's kind of, I guess, where this one's at to be tabled at this point.
For the school zone specifically?
Well, the only thing I would say at this point with the school zone, if there aren't problems or something, the only thing is I read a few things, I went through it. It sounds like there's an opinion of, the flashing, which I think is a good thing. The memo seems kind of old. I had a big question about the school zones designations and all of that bit, and the fields, but it's probably fine.
So as far as putting up signs, then, do you guys need to come to council for those signs? Or you're able to, within your budget,
No,
provide that?
We do so there's a request in, drives a traffic order. If staff reviews it, finds it, says, yeah, this merits a new crosswalk or a new sign, traffic order goes out to the traffic crew and they go put it out.
Okay.
And then when they get it installed, take a picture, it's in Cartograph, it's complete.
So you already feel we can handle his request then pretty
Oh, yeah,
easily?
yeah, I mean, I've got the request, and Luke's got the request. Luke will go talk to Iris, and we'll probably put a traffic order in this afternoon.
Will you be updating your policy anytime soon and some of the maps and the school zones and all that bit based on, it's the old school map, instead of the new, and some of the boundaries? It's about 10 years old
Yeah.
and there's a few questions. And since you said you've been getting a lot of feedback from your community school resource officers.
But I will add though, I mean, as far as what your comment talked about, as far as needing the council, it would be for during the budget season to increase the budget because signage isn't gonna be able to come out of the stormwater
No.
fund.
That's right.
So when Public Works requests that money in the budget, that's where it's gotta come. There's, if there's gonna be an increase.
I was just saying
100%.
that money's freed up, that wasn't saying it came from that.
Right.
I was just trying to say that money should now hopefully will free up some of that money so that
Right.
the
Oh,
streets
Understood.
keep some of their money.
Okay.
Can we for the next, cause my intent here too was to really dive into the streets that we feel that we need to change, or maybe keep the same, but we'll look at that, so I don't know if it would be more feasible for you, Sergeant, for you to gather maybe from some of your police officers, streets that they feel like could actually not be a 25 to a 35, or how that would look, and also for you, so I don't really know what kind of data we need to get to make sure whether we should change speed limits, or if they are safer at the speed that they're at, but I would like to look at.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying everything's perfect as it's signed now, or not, even if it's not signed, as it's designated 25 versus 35 versus 20, whatever, I'm not saying that's perfect, I'm just, the data that we have, because we do regular speed studies, the data that we have seems to correlate with what's signed. If there's feedback, whether it's from the neighborhood or the police or anybody else that says, yeah, it doesn't jive, that would probably be the easiest way to route forward, to just identifying blocks, streets that you have concerns about. Because I actually was up at the Orchards last Friday driving around, and some of these streets that I don't live on and I'm getting more familiar with, the right of way is very narrow. You can't get two cars through there, and so they're all 25 by default.
Yeah.
Is that the best way to do it?
I don't like that. to be
So,
honest with you.
I think that maybe merits a conversation, and that is kind of the gray area where we talk about traffic engineers and they're very rigid and we go by the MUTCD.
Right.
Versus you got 14 feet of right of way. That's not enough for 2 lanes, so how are we going to make those two concepts gel?
Yeah,
So-
and I don't know if the police, if you feel like maybe the police would be a good one where they could kind of say, hey, we're out there, we're doing the work, we're seeing this, and maybe there's areas that they feel they have suggestions for that maybe are worth looking at.
Just a couple things. One, just on the school zones, we do have a problem at Thane and Burl, that could be a whole conversation just for that intersection by itself.
Yeah.
And we got crossing guards hitting cars as they're driving by. But that would be a whole conversation. Wow.
It's nasty, I've been driving through there a lot lately, and it's.
Wow.
Hitting cars like to slow down, is that what?
What's that?
Hitting cars like to slow down?
Yeah, or turning when they got kids in the car. It's a buggered intersection. There's so many
There needs
kids
to be
and so
more.
much different ways you can cross.
Yes.
But anyway, that would be a whole conversation in itself. As for speed, just to let you know, when I do a lot of our crash statistics, I'm the traffic guy.
Okay.
And I do a lot of our statistics. And we mirror the state of Idaho every year. That speed is usually not a factor involved. Speed is a factor in some crashes. Usually our fatalities are serious injury, but those ones, 60 miles an hour down Bryden Canyon, lose control, and alcohol is usually involved too. But our general normal crashes that we deal with, speed's not the contributing circumstance. It's following too close, inattention, and failure to yield. And that's consistent year after year. So when we go to these crashes, speed is usually not the issue that we're dealing with. So I don't know if that changes what you're thinking on trying to change speed limits.
Well, I'm specifically more looking at the, like you said, small neighborhood streets that really 25 is just too fast. When you got kids running around, you got dogs running out, just so many things that can interfere. And I don't know if that, changing that and having it with a speed limit, like this is 15 in this area, and not every street that has a neighborhood maybe need that. If that's something that would help citizens actually feel like they could start seeing some people slow down in those areas, because I know you probably get calls where they're like, hey, in my neighborhood, they're constantly speeding past my house. So just kind of how can we address that, and that's what I'm trying to accomplish.
Most of the ones in like the neighborhoods, like if you're talking just inside a neighborhood, not like like Grell, Burl, which is a
Not the
major
bigger
thoroughfare,
ones,
not the big ones, but just the major, or the small little
Correct.
Residential sections. It's that one guy in the corner that speeds by it's not like every day we're having constant flow of traffic. It's the guy on the corner in the white pickup speeds. So we try to target him. Or it's the house on the, over here where they have 2 teenage kids that speed up and down our street all day long. So those are the ones we're targeting, so changing the speed limit probably wouldn't do anything, because it's a targeted person that's doing it, not everybody in that neighborhood speeding. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's because I know some people have talked, like big neighborhoods have been like, we're gonna get together, we're gonna get speed limit, or speed bumps, and so I don't know if that's something that too is, if they feel like that street's a consistent issue, can they work together as a neighborhood and put some speed bumps in,
That
or?
seems like a great transition to our traffic calming policy.
It does,
Okay.
doesn't it?
Perfect, I'm good with that.
And a lot of the perception is quite off too. Where we will go sit in an area and they're like, look at that, they're 40 miles an hour, we hit our radar.
Right, it's
They're
not.
5 over the speed limit. I mean, the perception is people are going a lot faster than what they're actually doing.
Well, 25 feels pretty fast on a small street, that's
It
what
does.
I was saying, is 25 is honestly too fast sometimes, but not to say that just because you change that speed limit, are people actually gonna, go, lower, or, I know that's an issue, so, but yeah, I guess if you guys see ones, then you guys have the ability to bring it up. I'll think on that one then, on the street, or little neighborhood streets.
Okay, we need to kind of move along unless there's anything else that can,
Just
okay.
one thing, Iris did bring that one to me when we talked about it, and so that's on me. But I'm not
And
sure.
I'm not trying to point
I
a
don't
fault,
remember,
I was just,
yeah.
I just knew these 2 areas and I just wanted to,
Yeah, I just wanted to make
maybe
sure.
I just
that-
went the wrong way about it, maybe you should have done something more formal.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make sure that we weren't hanging anything on Iris as far as customer service
No,
goes.
no,
'cause
no,
that
not at all. She
that
was
me.
very
She came and
helpful.
talked to me, and I don't remember where that conversation ended, but she did talk to me.
Okay, no, I didn't want to come across that way. She was very helpful, I just didn't hear back.
Thank you for being here, and thank you
Yeah,
for
it's very
that.
helpful.
So we're gonna need to move on to item B, which is draft policy and procedures for neighborhood traffic calming requests. And I know we're limited on time, are we okay for, you have to leave, but, is everyone else okay going to 1:30?
I can't stay that late, I gotta be 1:15.
Okay.
I probably can't either.
We can push it to next time.
If you would like to do that,
Yeah,
okay,
probably.
let's just
Are
go
you
ahead.
able to come to next meeting? Okay, awesome. I think it'd be helpful to have, I think it's helpful to have you here, so.
If, just make sure I get the email, I think it went to Jenny or probably the chief, and then it gets forwarded to me, but if someone wants just to email me as well.
Okay, great. We really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, very helpful.
Do we need to vote on it?
To have them do.
No, to move it
Oh,
to the next month.
Oh, yeah, I was like, that's weird.
All those, do I have a motion?
Let's go ahead, I'll make a motion that we table the item 3B, the draft policy procedures, to the next meeting.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. And it was a good conversation. I really didn't want to interrupt it and move it along when it was going so well, so thank you. Upcoming meetings and events. Regular meeting is December 13, 2023. Any commissioners that cannot be here? Okay, see none.
Sorry.
I think you're okay, and Sergeant, you'll be here as well? Okay, so, great. The Stormwater Drainage System Utility Public Outreach Event in late November. Who would like to talk about that, or do I just read it?
We have an official date now, this came out before we settled on one, but it's November 28th, which is a Tuesday. And it'll be like the October event where there's a session from noon to 1 and from 5:30 to 6:30, and it's at the
That's on,
822 Brighton.
okay, all right, so like, all right, they had one of those
Yeah, Brighton.
last year.
Did that go okay? Do we have clarity?
We had,
Yeah,
That was talking about Bryden. Yeah.
that one was Bryden that we had.
Oh, I know
the
that
last
one, yeah, I
event,
went
but
to
the orchard, or the stormwater, we had, okay. It was, I think we had a dozen people at each.
Did they seem to understand it? I know that's kind of hard to gauge, but.
Yeah, I would say most of the comments were people who have had ongoing flooding or storm drain issues and saw this as an opportunity to address those and provided, feedback that a lot of us were familiar with. Some of them I wasn't familiar with, some of them we were familiar with. But I think generally they had some good comments as far as how we can tweak the system one way or the other. But generally they said, yeah, if this is a revenue source, I would like to see this thing fixed, so that was good.
okay. Okay. Any unfinished and new business?
So were we gonna, or can we put on one of the agendas the Thana Rural discussion that he was referring to, as far as Otherwise, unless we already kind of have that, but I don't know if we want to lay it out.
You're the boss.
I think we should have that conversation and maybe kind of bring back the school zone one since we kind of didn't get a chance to touch on it today.
Yeah,
I agree with that. Feasible, or good. So do we need to make a motion for that
I
too?
think so, right? For future, yes, I'll make
Do
a
I have
motion.
a motion?
Just, I make a motion to bring Thane and Burl for future discussion and
School zones.
school zones.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. That will be when, did we decide?
I probably would not be at the next one, because I think that discussion seems like it might take quite a chunk.
Yeah.
Our discussions seem to take a while, so it almost seems like having
We
too
should-
many things on the
Yeah, I have
agenda.
a- I have a
Yes.
question related to that. So
Okay.
can we, it seems like we just kind of scratched the surface on a lot of these hour and a half meetings. Is there value in us having a breakout or an evening workshop or something like that? Can we have special meetings like that? Would it be helpful?
Or the length of time, this one is, it's only 12 to 1, isn't it?
I
Yeah.
thought we had asked about going 12 to 1:30, but
I don't know
Never
that we
was
ever
resolved.
officially did that.
There's nothing in the bylaws that
Just
state
says
how long the meetings
You
are.
can meet at
It's
one
up
and
to you
or
guys.
meet at noon and you go as long as, there's nothing that says you have to stop.
Okay,
It just specifies the date.
well,
the
but I
month
think
that it
it's
occurs.
for people to
Planning,
plan and
planning.
work related to employers.
Right, yeah. You're thinking like an evening session, maybe?
Yeah, just another time that.
I mean, I
could
think that would be
evening
feasible and
Workshop, something like that.
valuable.
well,
We can explore.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's think about it and see how that works for everyone. I'm okay with that. Over the lunch hour is fine with me, or in the afternoon. I
At
don't,
these, well, I guess at these workshops, what would be the goal? Is it just more informational, or would it be something, that there is some resolution, or is it just so that we're more informed? I mean,
Yep.
today felt was more like, I don't know, today I guess was more informational. I thought we were going to have a little bit more involved, but like you said,
Yeah, we'd have to clearly identify objectives for whatever the breakout was, for sure. Is there, what are the goals, what are the objectives of the breakout?
so the breakout is
Specific.
what we're talking about a different time.
Yes,
Not actually
yes.
resetting this
Right.
time. Okay, thank you, all right. Yeah, okay, it's like another little work
Work
session within it, but specifically for that. Okay.
we might be able to discuss it next month coming up.
Is this time to think about it and when it might work?
What was the discussion that we were gonna talk about on Wednesday, next meeting?
We had the stormwater permit, the MS4 permit, as
Okay.
well as the Blue Bridge letter for you guys to review.
Okay, so then I would say that the Burl and Thane and then the school zones would be the meeting after that.
In January?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Whatever day that is in January.
I think-
Thank you, Laura.
I don't know. Would be the 10th? Right, second Wednesday?
Yes. And it's completely up to you guys if you wanna shift things around on the agenda. Those are always just placeholders, so if you wanna continue this discussion, since it's already on your brain kind of, we can certainly do that.
Okay, whatever anyone is wanting to do.
I don't have a preference, so.
If you want to have a breakout sessions, we can figure out a time for that and really focus on something. If we've had it like today it was just scratching the surface and we feel like we really need to emphasize that, then let's set up a breakout and you guys work overtime.
I don't get paid for that.
As long as we come up on beer 30, right? No, so we can discuss that, or do you want to set a time for that? If this is something that, from today, we can take it and condense it and work on it. So,
Yeah, you can technically make a motion and then
yes.
you just
Well,
give people.
I'm kind of maybe gonna lean on Director Johnson a little bit just to gauge interest and, I mean, that's ultimately what we need to do is provide value to public works. So-
Yeah, one thing that, like Laura, now that she left, what she brought up about the public works policy for the school zones, that might be something that would be great for this group to dive in on. These public work policies, the background on these were obviously drafted before I got here. They're 2012, this one was. This is not an official document. This is a document that's signed by the Public Works Director at the time that says, this is an internal policy that we'll move forward and implement. And a lot of this stuff is just referencing, you know, the current MUTCD and designated school zones. There's nothing in here that's really too specific or too binding. But if that's, you know, we could spend a breakout session just talking about how can we best refine this public works policy and maybe even have it be adopted by resolution by the council to say, this is the policy moving forward versus something this is just an internal policy. So that's one that could justify a breakout session. And then we can specifically talk about these very specific school zones and identify those and say, you know, these are the concerns. This is what we're trying to mitigate with this policy.
You mean that first and then kind of the
Do
rest
the
of the
policy
subjects
first.
follow, basically?
Yeah, the policy first, and then go into the individual school zones.
Yeah.
And the
That
other
makes
thing,
sense.
the other thing I was saving it for my liaison comment, but we are actively working on the transportation CIP. And so if there is a school crossing, a school zone, there are some on there that are identified, but this group has a lot of clout to, you know, recommend any projects to the CIP, so I would say, let's hear it. It's very, you know, this is the perfect time right now, whether from the topic that we're talking about and the time that we're starting to adopt our CIP.
So to me, it makes sense that we would continue with the conversation, with the meeting agenda for the next one, which was the Blue Bridge and then the what'd you say, the MS4. And then the next one, and then maybe breaking up into the session, breaking that down and then revisiting the schools.
Or do you need us to do the school zones sooner than that?
No. I mean, the only thing is,
January,
we will be adopting the CIP in February. So however we need input from this group, and even if it isn't school zones, if it's something that, transportation related, this group should have some feedback. And even if it's individuals coming to me that say, these are projects that are important to me.
And so is a policy that you wanna possibly get into a resolution for the council, would that be needing to be done before the CIP? No, okay.
No,
So
it'll be a
then what-
standalone.
So, yeah, that should be our goal, I think, right now, between now and February, is to affect whatever changes need to be done for the CIP.
And one of those objectives is the school zone policy. Right? Isn't that what you said?
Not necessarily. It may feed off of each other. Something that's identified in the
So-
CIP
Okay.
should be reflected in the school zone
But you could probably
policy.
make a motion then to pick a date that you
Yeah.
break off and we can
So
just.
we,
And
Yeah.
so I have the bylaws open and it's just as if the time and place of a special meeting hasn't been determined during a regular meeting, then we can send that out at a later date, but as soon as possible. So I can send out a survey to you guys, so you have time to review
that'll work.
your
Seems like we
schedules.
could do more frequent meetings or do any evening
Right, I
meetings
was
or something like
thinking that
every
we
2
almost need
weeks.
to do this twice a month.
If we need to.
But right now, for the CIP, since that has a date, what would be effective, like 2 or 3 goals for us to go over and have ready for that?
It would be
Or
good.
is 3 too much, is 2 too little?
I would say that this group, doing their homework, should go off and look at the CIP, look at what's identified in there, and see, is there anything missing? Is the prioritization wrong? And then come back and have, maybe Kevin's identified 6, but the rest of the group's only identified 2 amongst the rest of them. I'm not too focused on numbers, but I think it would be
Right.
really great for this group to come in and say, we should recommend this as a project, or this
Okay.
one should come off the list.
And that's the present CIP, not a draft that you have, is there
That's
a
the
draft?
present, that's what we're amending, so.
Okay, so the present one is pretty much the draft, okay,
yeah.
amending that. All right, then, yeah, that's what I think is what we should focus on between now
And I
and
think-
February.
As we're doing that, we're still having that same conversation about the school zones, and if there are any capital projects that need to be in that list that aren't already on that, as we're working through the policy can get bumped, because it's not
Right.
impactful to the CIP.
Okay, cool.
So breakup session about the CIP? Is that what you're saying?
I think, well, I guess I was just stating that that our focus should be
Right.
on that, on the CIP between now and then. Not that we can't do other things, but I mean, just, that seems to be like I said, there's a deadline on that.
I think really, I guess overarching, transportation should probably be the focus of this group for the next, not necessarily sole focus, stormwater's still very strong, but prioritizing transportation until the CIP is adopted in February.
Yeah.
Or the agenda items we're working on next session in line with that, or do we need to?
That was the bridge, and then.
I mean,
Those are more
I don't know
stormwater based,
the-
they can wait,
Right.
and they're not time sensitive.
So we'll move that, table those then.
So we're, so
We're
just.
gonna amend the motion for the breakout session to encompass the CIP.
Okay, so do we want to set a time for this breakout session?
I think it might be easiest if we just send a doodle poll.
Yeah.
Oh, you said
Yeah.
a
And
doodle
then-
poll.
The special
Okay.
meetings may
I
be
was-
called by a consensus of the commission, the
Oh, yeah.
chairperson, or the staff liaison.
Okay.
We could figure out the time
Laura's
and
not here.
date.
Pardon?
She's not here, so.
Oh, okay.
She'll send out basically times to go over. We
Okay,
can all pick a
sounds
time.
good. All
That
right.
works for
Do
us.
we need to amend anything for this?
I was gonna say, I can move that we have a special meeting and that
To be
the time
determined
and
later.
date to be determined.
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? It passes, thank you. All right. Let's see, where are we? Where are we? You're in charge here. Act like it.
I think we just-
Unfinished and new business, commissioner comments? Which, comments should not be related to an item that currently before the commission or an item that may come before the commission in the foreseeable future and should be limited to comments and no discussion. Anyone have anything there? Yes.
The only one I do, kind of in line with what was mentioned earlier, as far as like action, if we're having the special session, can we have an agenda with what we're supposed to be accomplishing so we can try to stay focused on that? I know
Yes,
it's
yes.
goals if we're trying to be informed of what we're doing, so.
We need an agenda.
Yeah, it will be public.
Sorry, I would also request, that if there is any information or data that you would like, staff to prepare or present, if you let us know at least a week ahead of time. Monday's kind of a tight turnaround. So, yes, if you could be cognizant of that, we would greatly appreciate it.
Okay, so, sounds good.
Main Street looks great today.
Main Street?
Yeah, the fall leaves, the
Oh.
colors, all that stuff, it looks beautiful.
Good comment. Bring me back to focus. Actually, we don't have to go to the New England states. We have the most beautiful colored trees right here, and they last longer. I've been there, it froze, the colors came on, they fell. So, I stay home. Staff liaison comments.
I already talked about the CIP. The only other thing I would add to this group, and I'm not sure who has gotten their tour,
It was amazing.
if you want a tour of the wastewater treatment plant.
Oh, I got it.
You got your tour.
Yeah.
Did you get your tour in?
I mean, I've been out there.
Okay. Anybody wants to,
You've been out there, haven't you?
wants a tour of the wastewater treatment plant.
What about the water treatment?
Water plant's getting close, getting
Getting
close.
close? Okay.
Yeah, we gotta clean it up just a little bit more.
I'll send you an email on that.
Yeah.
Brendan, if you wanna go out, we'll get you a tour. It's really quite interesting.
It is, and they love their job. I mean,
They
like,
do.
all the passions out
Yeah,
there.
They're
It's
really
great.
cool out there. The
Yeah.
guys
Yeah,
out
the
there.
greenest lawn you've ever seen.
Well, Landscape is
It's a
They have
secret
a
sauce.
water feature and everything, wetland.
Birdhouses.
Birdhouses, yes, it's a great tour.
So yes, we will,
Oh, and
the
the bugs.
standing
Bugs.
invitation for the wastewater plan. And we will be getting, I guess, probably next month, hopefully we'll have some. The water plant is a little logistically difficult because the construction on the bridge and there's no parking out there. And there's kind of less to see.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's a difficult site, but
In the spring.
In the spring maybe.
Yep.
Okay, but the bugs are cool too out there at the wastewater. That's neat. Okay, so you got all yours?
That's it.
Okay. Future agenda items, I think we've kind
Covered
of,
that.
we've taken care of that, all
Or
right.
remove stuff and then added the traffic calming coming back, right? And then
Yep.
the School zone coming back this next session.
Okay.
Work into the CIP.
Okay. All right, how about an adjournment?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded, how about voice?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? I think it passes. All right. Thank you so much, it's been.